Welcome to the third of three legacy conversations, legacy living and legacy giving. In session one, we tackled the importance of getting the information of our lives in order and letting our loved ones know how to access that information when needed. We also addressed the importance of expressing our wishes for how we want to be cared for at the end of our lives. We hope that you were inspired to take a first step. It is a gift to your loved ones and also a gift to you to know that your affairs are in order. We hope that having this work done will allow you to feel at peace and to better enjoy every day of your life. In session two, we talked about instituting creative rituals that allow loved ones to remember and celebrate your life even when you're no longer physically present. I hope you're having fun with some of these imaginative ideas and rituals, and I hope that you'll share some of them with us and how you're creating and using them in your own lives. Today, in session three, we will explore an ancient and resurging movement toward ethical wills and planful giving. I'll speak briefly to the concept of ethical wills and then turn it over to Jim Rice and John Holberg to share with you about legacy giving. There are helpful documents attached to guide you. If you see, these are the three participants for today's session, myself, Jim Rice, and John Holberg.
Thank you very much, Lindy. John and I are looking forward to a conversation where we look at some important insights and inspirations about living a life of purpose and looking at what we can learn from not only ancient philosophers, but modern financial planners about the art and science of giving. John, why don't you join in the conversation with us and share some ideas and insights you've gained over the years about living a life of purpose?
Great, Jim, thank you. You know, over the last few months, I've been working with Richard Leiter on an adult leadership program. Richard is the author of 10, actually soon to be 11 books, who for decades has done research on finding our purpose or our calling. In this session, we're going to talk about how our legacy gifts can and should reflect our purpose and our calling. You know, throughout our lives, I think we all do our best to allocate our time, our talent, and our treasure to the people and the purposes we care most about: our family, our friends, the activities that bring us joy, and the causes we care most about. And that legacy giving, or excuse me, that legacy living can translate into legacy giving. And for many people, that legacy or bequest gift to an organization may be the largest gift that they ever give. And it's really a chance to leave a legacy to an institution that made a difference in our lives. Now let's spend a little more time about talking about the power of purpose. For a number of years, Richard Leiter would spend a month in Africa, engaged in conversation with tribal elders. Through these experiences and through his own research and coaching, Richard has developed some pretty simple ideas to help us live a life of purpose. Through that research, he's found that people who have found their purpose are always growing. You know, they're acquiring new skills, they're learning new ideas, and they're giving to others. And to be successful, though, we need some help along that journey. Through his work, Richard has identified 4 key people who are partners on our journey: a wise elder, a wise younger, a purpose partner, and a trainer or a coach to help keep us on track. Now let's talk about how we can each find our purpose. Again, theologian Frederick Buechner has said that the place God calls us to be, you know, our calling or our vocation, is the place where our deep gladness and the world's deep hunger meet. I love that quote, and I've used it several times. Richard Leiter's formula on this page states that our calling is informed by our gifts, our passions, and our values. A meaningful legacy gift can also be, and should also be, a function of those passions and values. the causes that we care most about and the organizations that support those causes should be where we prioritize our legacy gifts. Let me turn it back to you, Jim.
Thank you, John. As we look at this mapping of our life journey to a life of purpose, if we go to the next slide, we're going to look at how we might celebrate that in some new gifts, and we're going to get some useful and inspirational ideas about ethical will. I'd like to turn back to you, Lindy, to share some of the insights that you've gained about what an ethical will is and some of the process and mindset we might want to embrace to make that happen.
Thank you. The guru in this field of ethical wills is Barry Baines, and there's a lot of material that he has researched, and some of this comes from his work, and that is readily available online if you want to Google Barry Baines. But ethical wills are a way to share your values, blessings, life's lessons, hopes, dreams for the future, and express love and forgiveness with your family, friends, and community. Now, ethical wills are not at all new. The Hebrew Bible first describes ethical wills 3,000 years ago. You can find the biblical reference in Genesis chapter 49. References of this tradition are also found in the Christian Bible in the book of John in chapters 15 to 18. And ethical wills are found in cultures all around the world. Ironically, ethical wills are transmitted, or originally ethical wills were transmitted orally. Over time, they evolved into written documents. Ethical wills are not legal documents, they're statements of intangible gifts that are bequeathed to members of a future generation. Today, ethical wills are being written by people turning points and transitions in their lives and when facing life's challenging situations. They're usually shared with families and communities while the writer is still alive. After reading a number of ethical wills, there are common themes that run through many of them. Older ethical wills contained burial instructions, blessings, and personal and spiritual values. Here's a list of some of the common themes that can be seen in modern ethical wills. We'll look at the next slide here. Important personal values and beliefs, important spiritual values, hopes and blessings for future generations, some of life's lessons. Some of them are like love letters. Some of them are asking for forgiveness and forgiving others. Writing an ethical will may seem difficult. However, it can be viewed as simply writing a love letter to your family. Ethical wills include personal and spiritual values, hopes, experiences, love, and forgiveness. It may well be that one of the most cherished gifts that you can give to your family. An ethical will reflect the voice of your heart. Every ethical will is unique as the person who is writing it. So now let's talk about some of the strategies that might help you get started. Over time, just start writing some things down, collecting ideas about some important events in your life, and maybe even have a place to put it, a notebook or a treasure box or something. And imagine that you only have a limited time left to live. What would you regret not having done? Put some of those items and other items that you've saved in quotes and cartoons and so forth, keep them around together in a place that you have designated. Then review what you've collected every few weeks or months. And maybe when you collect enough, you can start putting them in different categories, clumping them together with things that are alike. And you might see some patterns emerge. When the patterns emerge, you can start to write down and expand and work on those categories and maybe develop some of them into paragraphs. And then maybe as you collect some paragraphs, you can arrange those paragraphs in a way that makes sense to you. And when you're done, work on a conclusion and an introduction. Then set it aside for a while and revisit it again. It will be a great process that you'll enjoy doing, and I think it'll turn out to be something that is well cherished. So I think the best place to start is to just start. put a pen in hand or start your fingers tapping on the computer. Set your mind free to remember and record. For every word that shows up will inspire the next word and the next. The first word is the hardest. So think of one word that you would hope to be remembered for, or to go for other people to recognize in you. I hope this one gives you just a little taste of what an ethical will could look like for you and what a gift it could be for your family. Now this next slide gives you some questions to start with. You can start by pondering the past, those who have influenced you in your earlier life, what differences they made in your life. What did you admire about them? What would you say to that person now? What are the milestone events of your life journey? What time or event would you like to do over again? What are you most proud of? Then explore the present. How am I spending my most precious resources, my time, my talent, my treasure? What motivates me? What inspires me? What do I like most to spend my time with? What do I most want my family and friends to know about me? What adjectives would I use to describe myself? What would others use to describe me? What do I know to be true? What do I wonder about? What mistakes have I made that I don't want my loved ones to repeat? What do I want to apologize for, and to whom? And last of all, maybe the best, what am I most grateful for? And then dreaming about the future. One more slide forward. What do I want to be remembered for doing? What do I want to be remembered for being? When I think of my loved ones, what do I wish for them? If I could do one thing for them, what would it be? What phrase, adage, or proverb do I want to pass along to them? These are good questions to get your mind started on thinking about your ethical will. And now I'd like to turn over the remaining time to Jim and John, who have some wonderful information to give you.
Thank you very much, Lindy. We've been looking at this journey in life and looking at a love letter to our family members, those that are important to us, people and organizations that we value. We now want to move from this gifting of intangibles to some gifting of tangibles. And to do that, we're going to start first with a look at philanthropy. And John is going to help stimulate our thinking about that. And then we'll be talking about some practical ways that might help you look at gifting tangible value and assets to those people and organizations that are important to us. John, why don't you join in our conversation now and look at the value of philanthropy and some of the insights we've gained over the years about it.
Great, Jim. Thank you. Yeah, the root of the word philanthropy translates literally into love of mankind. In other words, being philanthropic demonstrates our love and caring for our fellow man. Over time, most American families give to at least 5 to 7 charitable causes, typically a religious institution, a school, and then other causes that may be meaningful to them based on their life experiences. In the past years, that number used to be higher, more like 11 or 18 or 8 to 11 organizations. But in recent years, donors are looking to increase the impact of their giving. And churches and other religious institutions have historically been the largest beneficiaries of American generosity, with last year nearly about 29% of all giving going to religious organizations. Now let's, as Jim mentioned, let's talk about some of the tools that you can use to create these legacy gifts. Jim?
Thank you, John. If we can look at the next slide, at Wayzata Community Church, we do have a concept and a program of planned giving. We want to stimulate the members and friends of our church and the ministries and programs that are offered to the community and to our members through Wayzata Community Church. Planned giving is an intentional way to reflect on and to think about the future and to capture some of those gifts in ways that make sense to others. As some of you know, my family has been engaged in planned giving, and we have kept the church as an important part of our giving of tangible assets into the future to undergird and to celebrate and to support the ministries and the programs of that church. We've captured that in our estate plan, our will, and it talks about 80% remaining with our family and 10% with the University of Minnesota and 10% for Wayzata Community Church. This idea of thinking in advance of where we want our tangible assets to be provided is captured, as we see on this slide, about planned giving. But there are so many other ways and vehicles to look at transferring these intangible and tangible assets to our friends, our families, and other organizations. John, why don't you go through a few more of those? If we can look at the next slide. The one thing that I'd like us to keep in mind is these idea of communities that are important to us and of value. You can see these are not only family and friends, but as John has indicated, schools, art and cultural organizations. Our tangible gifts can be shared in a wide variety of ways to a wide variety of organizations and people. Let's talk about some of the mechanics and some of the opportunities to do that for you as you do your embrace of living a life of purpose and looking at legacy living as well as legacy giving. John, why don't we finish up with some practical ideas from your experiences?
Great, Jim. As shown on this next slide, there are many ways to make legacy gifts, from the very simple to more complex tools. We won't go over all of them in this session, but we'll hit some of the highlights. And we have prepared a short resource guide that you can download from the church's website that lists many of these tools and other things to consider as you're doing your own estate planning. But going back to the top, the easiest and most common bequest is to simply document in your will a percentage of your estate or a fixed dollar amount to a church, school, or other organization. It's easy to change the gift size too over time as your financial condition may change. In our own case, what Renee and I have done is we've simply created an addendum in our will that lists our intended gifts to organizations that we value, including Wayzata Community Church. That addendum or attachment is referenced in our will, so if we want to change a gift size or add an organization, we simply change the addendum and we don't have to redraft the entire will. Another easy way and meaningful way to leave a meaningful legacy is through a life insurance policy that is owned by the organization and for which they are the beneficiary. For example, I'm on the Gustavus Board of Trustees. It's an important aspect of my life. So Gustavus owns a life insurance policy and I pay the premium on that. And when I pass away, they will receive the value of that policy. Members might also want to consider taking advantage of the rules around the required minimum distribution from individual retirement accounts. These gifts have really grown in usage in recent years due to recent tax law changes. And I'll just leave you with one final thought on leaving a legacy. My mother passed away in November at the age of 95, and her small rural church was a big part of her life and my dad's life for many decades. I was the executor of her estate, and about 5 years before she died, we changed her will to give a portion of her estate to her church as an endowment. I explained to her that if she provided a bequest of $50,000 in an endowment, the church would have her annual pledge forever based on the income from that fund. She loved that idea, and it was an important legacy for her, and I was thrilled that we could do that.
If we will go to the next slide, we really appreciate your taking time, not just for this third conversation about legacy, but all three series. And you've heard us share an encouragement trying to inspire you to look at in your life's journey to look at how you share your intangible gifts with others that are important around you, as well as tangible gifts. We very much appreciate the time that you've spent with us. We hope it'll be of practical value. And we turn for our concluding comments for this session and the series back to Lindy. Thank you.
Well, in conclusion and with gratitude, I want to commend each of you who's been with us on this journey for your interest in legacy planning. I think it's one of the most important things we can give to our families and our communities. The one thing that is nice about this format, our series that's on Zoom, recorded on Zoom, is that you can access it on demand and it can be viewed more than once. In fact, we have been working on this for a long time, for about 6 months now, and we keep coming back to these same conversations and looking for new ways to inspire you to take the first steps and to keep stepping forward with ways to share your wisdom and your bounty and share them with the generations yet to come. So often we are asked to share our time and talent and treasure, but we also think it's important to share our testimony to life. This is work that will quite likely never be finished in our lifetimes, for it is something that continues to change and evolve until we take our last breath. So it is important to do and to keep doing. And I thank each of our participants for their valuable wisdom and their time in creating this series. And I wish to each of you a blessing along the journey. So share with us some of your ideas if you have a chance, and reach out to us. We're all in the WC Connect directory, and may you be blessed on the journey. Thank you.